Wish you could answer me, Mom. Mr. Atkins said he'd fail me if I was even a minute late again. My mom died a year and a half ago. It's like sometimes I can feel her around me.
All of them can hear you.
A quiet sense of dread always seems to settle in whenever revisiting the eerie shadow that Insidious, Chapter 3, left behind. Even though it arrived earlier in the timeline than the earlier installments, it carried with it the unmistakable signature of the series, a feeling that something unseen is always just a breath away, watching, waiting, and ready to slip through thin cracks between familiar rooms and the world beyond. The film marked a moment where the creative energy of the franchise blended with a new emotional depth, shaping a story that felt personal and raw, as if the darkness itself had intentions that reached far deeper than sudden jolts or chilling apparitions. By the time audiences sat down to experience it, they were stepping into a haunting that didn't simply follow a family, but reached directly into the vulnerabilities of the human heart. There was something undeniably compelling about how the film shifted its focus toward a more intimate emotional journey, exploring the pain, longing, and unresolved grief that makes certain individuals more susceptible to forces from the darker side. In this chapter, the atmosphere felt heavier, more melancholic, as though the air itself carried memories that refused to settle. This shift introduced a refreshing layer of sympathy, inviting viewers to root deeply for a young girl whose quiet struggle became the entry point for a nightmare stretching into a realm colder and more merciless than anything experienced before in this series. It felt less like a continuation and more like peeling back a curtain on a story that had been waiting in the background all along. One of the most striking elements was how the film centered on the journey of Elise Rainier, a familiar figure whose presence had always held a calm strength. This installment offered a rare look at her inner turmoil, exploring the reasons behind her hesitations, fears, and the shadows she carried as a result of her own traumatic past. Instead of presenting her as someone simply stepping in with confidence, the film highlighted the emotional conflict that made her reluctant to reconnect with the dark dimension known as the Further. Her struggle was as human as it was supernatural, grounding the rest of the story in a deeply personal conflict that shaped everything happening around her. As the story unfolded, the film ventured into the idea that the darkest entities are drawn not just to vulnerability, but to longing, especially the longing that comes from reaching for someone who is no longer there. The eerie presence haunting Quinn felt less like chaos and more like a calculated force, preying on emotional weakness, creating a chilling reminder that some spirits are far more manipulative and patient than expected. This perspective broadened the mythology of the Further, depicting it not simply as a barren void, but as a place filled with entities capable of deceit, mimicry, and an unsettling intelligence rooted in malice. Every doorway, every shadowed corner, and every flicker of dim light hinted at a presence waiting just outside the frame. The energy behind the production carried a distinct sense of experimentation. With a fresh directorial vision guiding the film, the tone shifted in ways that felt both familiar and daring. There was more interest in exploring the emotional stakes rather than relying solely on terror, resulting in a story that balanced psychological tension with well-timed moments of fear. The performance at the heart of the film resonated strongly, portraying a young girl whose grief made her both sympathetic and vulnerable. Her attempts to reach out to the afterlife were presented with a quiet sincerity that made the consequences of her actions even more devastating. Each moment where she believed she might be connecting with someone she missed deeply added layers of heartbreak to an already intense experience. Behind the scenes, the creative team approached the world of the Further with renewed ambition. They expanded its visual identity, introducing unsettling new details that deepened the sense of unease. The dim, fog-filled corridors and the echoing silence gave the impression of a place where time stretched unnaturally, where spirits wandered aimlessly, and where danger lurked behind the slightest movement. The decisions made about atmosphere, lighting, and sound design added a richness to this realm that fans of the series still point to as one of its strongest elements. Every step taken within the Further seemed to carry weight, as though the very ground resisted the presence of the living. Elise's journey through this dimension felt like a confrontation with her own fears, an emotional battle as much as a supernatural one. Each encounter she faced in that world was layered with unresolved grief and the lingering burden of her past. This allowed the film to create a powerful connection between her personal struggles and the central haunting, making the confrontation at the end feel not just necessary, but transformative. Her decision to reclaim her strength, despite the shadows that had haunted her, stands out as one of the most memorable emotional moments in the franchise. The film may have been steeped in darkness, but Elise's presence brought a sense of resilience that made the danger feel conquerable. The entity terrorizing Quinn felt unique compared to earlier spirits in the series. It wasn't just violent, it was possessive, manipulative, and disturbingly patient. Its ability to imitate voices and lure the living closer showed a chilling intelligence, making its attacks feel methodical rather than impulsive. The design of this spirit reflected its unsettling nature, a presence that seemed frail but moved with unnatural speed, a figure whose twisted form suggested suffering, but whose intentions were far more sinister than its appearance implied. This approach added a fresh level of terror to the haunting, demonstrating how dangerous the spirits in the Further could become when fueled by desperation. The emotional bond between Quinn and her father provided the human core of the film. Their attempts to heal after the loss that fractured their world offered a touching contrast to the supernatural chaos surrounding them. Every scene between them added depth to the story, portraying grief not as a background detail, but as a force shaping their decisions, fears, and vulnerabilities. This emotional anchor helped ground the film, making the supernatural elements feel more immediate and impactful. Their struggle to rebuild their lives, while also facing unimaginable forces, echoed themes of resilience that resonate long after the film ends. As the film progressed toward its conclusion, the tension built with a steady rhythm that kept viewers on edge. The final confrontation carried the weight of everything that came before it: Quinn's longing, Elise's inner conflict, and the entity's growing strength. The way these threads converged created a climactic moment that felt both terrifying and meaningful. Elise's decision to reclaim her abilities and face the darkness directly signaled a new chapter in her life. Her courage became the point where the story connected back to the earlier installments, showing how she became the guiding force audiences had known from the beginning of the franchise. In the aftermath of its release, the film sparked discussions about the direction of the series, the emotional storytelling, and the deeper exploration of the Further. Many viewers appreciated the focus on personal grief and the haunting connection between the living and the dead. The film carved out its own space in the franchise, offering a prequel that enriched the larger narrative rather than simply filling in backstory. It expanded the mythology in meaningful ways, giving fans new perspectives on the world's most enigmatic spiritual medium. Over time, Insidious Chapter 3 continued to stand out as a reflective, character-driven story wrapped in the chilling atmosphere the series is known for. It blended emotional depth with supernatural horror, creating a haunting experience that lingered long after the screen faded to black. It offered a glimpse into the inner strength of a woman who would go on to play a vital role in confronting forces far darker than anyone had expected. It explored the fragile threshold between longing and risk, reminding viewers that sometimes the most dangerous doors are the ones opened not out of curiosity, but out of love and loss. Looking back, the film remains a pivotal chapter that shaped the tone of the franchise moving forward. Its emotional weight, haunting visuals, and commitment to expanding the universe allowed it to resonate with viewers in a uniquely powerful way. The story of a young girl reaching into the darkness, a father trying to hold his world together, and a gifted woman rediscovering her strength continues to echo in conversations among fans. It holds a place not only as a frightening journey into the unknown, but as a deeply human tale wrapped in supernatural terror. Even years later, the atmosphere, performances, and emotional undercurrents remain as memorable as ever. Insidious, Chapter 3 carved out a legacy that blends fear with compassion, shadows with resilience, and sorrow with the determination to reclaim the light. It is a chapter that enriches the entire series, offering both discomfort and healing through its exploration of the unseen. And it stands as a reminder that sometimes the scariest hauntings begin not with what lurks in the dark, but with what lingers in the heart.